Hello everyone, and welcome to our conversation with Dr. Kate Stone. And this is being brought to you by SUSE Women in Tech and Pride. And Kate is rocking her new look, which I'm sure she'll tell us all about later. I do enjoy my conversations with you, and so I've been very much looking forward to today. So those of you who haven't Googled her yet, Kate is a creative scientist and a physicist, but increasingly I think you're more of a philosopher these days, from Cambridge and now living her best life in LA. So the first time I met Kate is a very vivid memory for me. It was at a party at a do. I think we were there networking or something. And according to Facebook, it was around 2014. So it's quite a long time. And we've had lots of kind of adventures together through work and then also through play. I was digging up some of our photos from New York in our swimwear on top of a building in a bar. Looking bad. But whenever we meet, I just love the way that your brain works. And so I'm really excited to hopefully draw some of the wonderful things that we talk about into your, I'm being waved at, into your, I'm live, into this conversation now with you. Sorry, that was our director of finance shouting at me through the window, which is not great fun. Anyway, so to bring you to everybody, and I think we've had lots of adventures, and you've had lots of adventures, and also lots of growth. I think if there was anything that I would also assign to you, if I was to assign a thing to you, it would probably be, over the time I've known you, you have grown so much into yourself, and it's really lovely to watch. So I think I will kind of open with let's have a chat about growth. So if I was to pose a question, it would be, what would be, like, let's say, 2 big moments of growth for you since I met you in 2014, because then I'll have known them.
Since you've met me?
Yeah, so since 2014, big moments of growth. If you had more before then, that's fine. But
I think obviously one of them is when I had a crazy accident, right?
The famous accident.
Yeah, so I like to describe it when I tell someone who doesn't know. This will be the goriest story that you've ever heard. And they're like, well, that sets a high bar because, you know, like, I've heard of some gory things, so this is probably not going to be, but I'm quite literal. So, you know, I was literally gored by a wild deer. So whether it was gory or not, it was absolutely gory. You know, and that's something that literally stopped me in my tracks. I like to use the word literally when it's appropriate. And, you know, without going into all of the details, you know, I was walking through a forest, a deer ran into me, didn't see me, midnight, antlers through my throat, left me on the floor in a pool of blood. Kind of imagine, like, I don't know about you, but my life feels like a film. Everyone's life feels like a film, right? And in that film, we're all the main character. And if you've watched Game of Thrones, you know, it's like every season, like whoever you think is like the protagonist, the main character, suddenly killed off. Well, the writers of my own show, in my imaginary show in my head, wrote me out of my own show. And I'm like, oh, so this is how this season ends. So it's kind of like an end of season finale. You know, I was
did you really think this is going to be it? Because wasn't this the time when you were like, you'd started doing camping, when you were just taking your hammock out into the wild? Wasn't it around that time anyway? So you were kind of like taking risk and kind of just running straight at it. Did you think that was it?
100% thought it was it. For the last few years, I'd been going wild camping, so hiking up a mountain, sleeping on top of a mountain in a thunderstorm, like bolts of lightning, or just the crazy kind of dangerous stuff. And all my friends are like worried about me, like, are you going to die out there, whatever. I was staying at an Airbnb with some friends I'd met at Burning Man and in Scotland, and we were walking home from the pub to someone's garden shed to have some whiskey. So this was not one of those adventures. This was just walking home from the pub. Lay on the floor, gurgling through my neck, 100% certain that I'm going to die. And, a few years earlier, I've been having this sort of thoughts about free will and all of that, which maybe we'll get to or not. And just thinking about that. And if you come to the conclusion that we don't have free will, which is kind of what I did at the time, you realize that everything in your life was always going to happen. And the great byproduct of that is you have zero capacity to have regret. So when I was lay there, 100% certain that I was going to die. I mean, you don't lie on a forest floor, neck cut open, gurgling, breathing through a hole in your neck, nowhere near a hospital, and think, oh, I'll probably get through this. It was just a bad night out. Give me a few aspirin and a gallon of water, and I'll be fine in a few days.
Mr. Plasters.
Yeah, it's 100% I'm going to die. And the thought in my head was this was always going to happen. Okay, this is how they've written me out of my own show. It's okay though, because I have no regret, because in every moment I believe I've always tried to do the right thing that I can, that I think is the right thing, based on what I knew at that moment. So I have no regrets, nothing I would change. Always try to live my best life. And, if this is how I go, it's better than some boring car accident, right?
Right.
And what that meant was, though, and I know from being out in the wilderness, one of the biggest risks is panic. You panic, you die. I've seen
Right.
that. I've seen that happen to people. And so I didn't panic. I didn't go, why me? Or why is this happening to me? And when the struggle, I just focused on my breath, and I focused on the next breath in, nothing else in my mind. Enjoy a very slow and delicate breath in and a very slow and delicate breath out, and one thing led to another, and ambulance and helicopter and whatever, beginning of the next season of my life starts in a clinic in Asia, in a clinic next to the Sultan of Brunei's palace, with my brother and sister waiting to come across from Singapore, but the weather's really bad and they can't make it across. And there's a whole dialogue of me going around the world then, and somehow witnessing Snoop Dogg collude with the president of the Ukraine to drop a nuclear bomb on San Francisco and escape in a submarine, and then the SAS come and arrest either the nurse, me, or Snoop Dogg, but he was hiding in the broom cupboard. Anyway, that whole thing unfolds that I thought was real turned out to be a coma. So that's how the following season starts off in alternate reality.
That's insane, isn't it? It's like that. What's that new? God, I'm going to really show my age now. What's that new social media thing where they have all of the rooms? And I know you're in it. Where you set up a room and then people come into it. What's it called?
Clubhouse.
Clubhouse. Yes.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like what you're living now in Clubhouse.
I ended up going on Clubhouse and joining in, like, I'm not sure, late January, February, something like that. Met some friends on there. That's changed my life as well. So that's kind of crazy, because I kind of delved into Clubhouse earlier on this year and met some people. And then those people have become my real life friends. And, so yeah, one of my friends I met on Clubhouse is now my weekly rollerblading pal down at Venice Beach. So we go rollerblading together every week. Anyway, that's an aside. I just, throughout my life, I somehow fall into the archetype of wherever it is I am and whatever I do. It happened to me when I was young, when I was in my 20s, and went to Australia when I was 20, left home, went to Australia. And there's kind of the stereotype of what Australia is like, which of course it's not really like. But for me, it absolutely was. Everything I'd seen growing up as a stereotype of Australia was my real life. The adverts that I'd seen for the beer Castlemaine 4X growing up, the cockatoo drinking out of its can and horse sticking his head in the window, and and all of that, you know, not real, right? Mad Max, watching a show about someone before World War One going there and working in a shearing shed and ending up owning the biggest farm in Australia, you know, not real. But somehow I ended up in that bar where they filmed Mad Max, where the cockatoo really drank out the can. The horse literally stuck his head in the window, and I ended up getting a job on a sheep station where they asked if I could ride a motorbike, and I said, yeah, never ridden a motorbike in my life. I ended up in that shearing shed where this person from this series I'd been watching when I was growing up was the first farm that he'd worked on, and somehow I'm in this shearing shed from the 1800s, being asked to shear sheep, ride motorbikes, and also kill a few sheep to eat as well. So I ended up in the stereotype there as well. Anyway, that's an aside.
I had a similar thing in Australia as well. Actually, kind of went right out, right up into north, and definitely blagged that I knew how to do everything. I was a Jillaroo for a bit.
Right. Yeah.
No idea how to ride a properly, but I blagged it anyway. And I guess a lot of my life is about blagging. Okay, so I think.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm just thinking about growth. And I'm thinking about change, and I'm thinking about the people that are watching. So, you know, Women in Tech and our Pride group. And I know that you have started, and I am going to dob you in here. I said I wasn't going to dob you in here, but you said to me a few weeks ago, months ago maybe, that you're definitely going to write a book.
Oh,
and
my
so
God.
if I say it now, you're
Yes.
definitely going to have to write a book. And we talked about some of those chapters, and I think in talking about your embracing your life in LA, moving from New York, and then when you stayed in that weird place, and then when through lockdown while you were making your own food literally from scratch, which you must tell that story because it was fascinating watching you do that on Facebook, kind of milling everything and then squeezing everything out and then actually turning it into food that didn't just look beige. It's very clever.
Well, when I made lasagna, it took me 6 hours to make a lasagna.
I know, but like you made lasagna starting from like.
Yeah, well,
so
I started from the grain, from the durum wheat, milled it into semolina flour, made that into the pasta, set up a hydroponics, grew the spinach, had the soybeans, turned the soybeans into soy milk, turned the soy milk into tofu, and made that into the ricotta. It takes a while, but it's kind of worth it.
You know, and you know what's interesting about that is that because that is quite painstaking, but I know you enjoyed that process. And do you know what? We talked about the stag incident again. It's almost a bit like that kind of when you were taking that breath in and out and in and out. It's almost like you've kind of embraced that sometimes the slow movement and just enjoying just those tiny moments of making a lasagna from scratch. And a vegan lasagna at that.
Yeah, I think, you know, a couple of things that come out of those things are with the breathing and then thinking about the food is focusing on exactly what you have in that moment. You know, not worrying about if I'd have done this, this could have been different. You know, why is this happening? You know, I have no future. I'm going to die. None of that's real. None of that matters. All that matters is focus on exactly what you have in the moment. You know, and I think that for me is a source of growth, right? It's a source of growth. And then the other thing, talking about being in the ghost town of Silverton near Broken Hill, and you know, saying, does anyone know anywhere I can get a job? And then a former milkman from Norfolk, who's happened to been living there for 20 years, said, my son's leaving a farm and you can go there. Can you ride a motorbike? It's that saying yes to things that terrify you, because you know what I've learned is that my greatest fear in life is regret. You know,
right, interesting.
and so you know, having from someone who's just said they don't have regret, but you know,
right.
I use that to drive me. So you know, this thought of what if I, you know, don't do at 40 what I knew I should have done at 30, what I was too scared to do at 20. You know, what if I'm then 50 or 60 and no longer able to do that thing or live that life because I was too scared? Because I was too scared to be who I feel I am, because I was too scared to do what I felt was the right thing, because I was too scared of what might happen to me. because I was too scared of what people might say. Like, how am I gonna, be older, no longer have the ability to climb that mountain, to, to assume the gender that I feel I am, to start the business that I want to start, you know, whatever it is, how am I going to feel when I'm older, no longer able to do those things just because I was too scared? So, the fear of regret can trump any other fear you have in the moment to do the thing that inside you have to do. And what happens is you have a fear of doing the thing that stays pretty constant, right? And then you have a growing fear of regret. There's like it's like a backpack you're wearing, and more regrets piled into it as more time goes past. And that fear eventually becomes greater than that fear, the standard fear of
The
doing that
original.
thing. And you just
Yeah,
like, okay, life's too short. I am doing
yeah.
this. I don't care what happens. I don't care if I die, because one of the things I say, and particularly when I was, in transition and stuff, when I was too scared to leave my house, and because I knew if I left my house for 2 years, every single day I left my house, every single day, someone would throw abuse at me, throw food at me, throw ice at me from their drinks, throw me in a police car, throw me in a cell. That only happened once, but still it happened, you know. And so what I had in my head was, I would rather die living than live dying. The idea of staying at home, not being who I feel I am, is dying. That's living, dying. And going out the door and someone killing me, that's dying living. And absolutely choose that every single time.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's so powerful, and I know, I know when we've talked about, like, doing this kind of conversation, or other times when we're having a chat, you're always keen to talk about, kind of the other side of that transition, not the kind of pain of the transition. But I think what I think, in a conversation like this, I know that you and I have talked at times where we have both been really struggling with anxiety, really struggling with depression, kind of imposter syndrome, all of those things, and you really have to work through them. So I think, I think it's also important to acknowledge that, so you make the decision, you kind of go through, you kind of put yourself into the edge of where you're comfortable because you can't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
And but then you also have to keep moving through that, the feelings of anxiety and other kind of depressive,
Yeah.
not just depression, sorry, just mental health things.
And I feel all that too. It doesn't mean like I am not a super confident person. I have very low self-esteem, very low confidence. If ever I go to a conference, usually when everyone's mingling in the conference, I'm hiding somewhere and often crying. I will hide behind a pillar or a plant, or I have so much anxiety about going up to, there's all these little groups of people all talking to each other about their very important thing. And I am just too terrified to walk up to this group of 3 or 4 people and, through body language say, oh, can you all stop what you're talking about? Because I'm so important that I now need to arrive. You need to now talk to me and find out about me. No, in my head, I am not worthy, and I have no confidence, and just have no ability to go up to groups of strangers and speak to them. I am absolutely terrified, and there's many occasions when I've been at an event like that, nearly every time. Like I say, I hide and I just can't do it. I just can't do it, and I go home crying, or I sit there
Yeah,
hiding
yeah.
the fact that I'm crying. But give me a microphone, give me half an hour, give me the stage, where, especially like, you've paid me to fly to this country, and told me this, 1,000 people in this audience want to hear what you have to say, and then they announce me, and then they go quiet. And I'm like, I'll walk on stage, no script, no slides. I can then, I can speak for half an hour for whatever,
Right.
because I've been told that people want to listen to me and that that's okay. And so, I don't know, I'm in a different mode, and I'm totally confident, and I talk to them as if they're my friends. you know, but otherwise I don't have that confidence. Once I've spoken and done that keynote and walk around the conference, everybody wants to talk to me, so it's easy.
Exactly. No more hiding because you've been on that stage, and you know,
Yeah.
like your TEDx talk, you know, all the talks that you do, I know, kind of, you know, they're just always hugely interesting, and probably because you don't overthink it and you kind of pop out from hiding onto stage to get that microphone. But it is also important because, like, you know, all of the things that you do. So from a technology point of view, like I remember when we were doing Young Rewired State, and you were kind of there judging, mentoring, kind of, you know, showing the kids what they could do with paper, just interactive paper. And this was what, 2015, 2016. The world still hasn't caught up. And you have Navali, you have your own kind of technology business, and it's just, you're just hugely successful and kind of wildly interesting. So I mean, I love talking to you, but I think it is important to kind of recognize that anxiety, because you know everybody experiences it, and that kind of imposter syndrome.
All the time,
But
all the time.
yeah,
When
right.
you know, when, like, you know, I worked, so 15 years ago or so, I worked at a startup, and I worked there 4 years. I loved it for a while, then I hated it. I just found it really hard to cope. And it actually gave me a lot of mental health issues. So I left, and I started in my garage. But you know, just the idea of saying to anyone, "Oh, I'm CEO of my own business," terrified me. I can remember sitting in the car outside. Actually, it was outside Tops cards. They make the baseball cards and things.
Oh yeah.
And I was sat
Yeah.
outside, in my car, knowing I was going into a meeting, and my knees were shaking. I was sweating. I was terrified. The thought of going in there and saying that I have my own business, and like, absolutely terrified me, terrified me. But I have no choice. I have to do it anyway. So I do things that totally terrify me. You know, I am not scared. You know, so no one should be held back from doing something because they see someone else do it with ease, and they think, I'm too scared to do that. I'm not brave enough to do that. I'm not brave enough to do that anyway, but I do it anyway. And each time I do, I grow.
Yeah, it's all, and I think sometimes, well, probably especially since lockdown, because you know it's wonderful kind of, you know, watching you skating on Venice Beach and kind of teaching yourself how to skate and going, I have no idea how to do this, but I'm going to do it
No
anyway.
idea.
And just kind of, it's so inspirational though, just to kind of see you almost take these things that you're just like, right, I hate doing that, so I'm just going to go and do
Yeah. Well,
it.
I saw, you know, I was been walking down the beach because this year I've been on a mission to lose weight, get fit, you know,
You'll glow
my
up.
and what, sorry?
You'll glow up.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. I now even pack, when I go out in LA, what I call a glamour go bag. You know, a go bag in case there's an earthquake or something. Well, around here you need a glamour go bag. So you need your hair curlers, your makeup, day wear, evening wear, swimwear, all in a bag, goes in the car. You never know what adventure's going
Right.
to pop up at any moment. Yeah, so no, I've been walking down the beach, and I saw people rollerblading on the boardwalk, which is the concrete pathway from Venice Beach to Santa Monica. And I was like, I kind of want to be that person. I want those hot pants, and I want to be that person. So I bought some rollerblades, and then yeah, and then someone I'd met on Clubhouse, Greg, he saw that I'd posted that I'd bought these rollerblades. He messaged me saying, I've seen you've bought rollerblades. It's really inspired me too. He said, I last rollerbladed 10 years ago with two Great Danes. So I am going to buy rollerblades, and I'm going to teach you to rollerblade. And we met in Venice Beach car park. And he was very patient with me, holding my hands. You know, and after a couple of weeks, we got the confidence to go out on the boardwalk. And now I do an hour and a half up and down. I am still
Amazing.
terrible. I still fall on my
Okay.
ass, and I still look like an ass. But I do it. I do it anyway.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? Yeah, I love it, and I wish I could do that as well. I will do it. Honestly, I've never rollerbladed. I used to do you know, in the 80s with the four wheels and the boots. Like I could just about do that in escape room content. Absolutely terrible. When I come visit you, we have to go and do something.
Definitely.
Something like that. Lots of falling over. So your essay. So talking about LA brings us neatly into your, you know, the most recent essay and chapter of your book that we were talking about with identity and what that meant. Was it identity? Is that what it was? We're kind of, you know, kind of what it's like to live in LA and then kind of trying on the LA lifestyle. Can you expand for everyone who hasn't? Oh, by the way, before we carry on, we are going to do a Q&A in about 20 minutes. So just put questions in the chat, and Rob will do a Q&A in about 1:45.
Okay. Yeah, and so I'm not looking at the camera. My camera's here and my computer's here and you're on here, so I'm kind of not quite looking in the right direction.
Talk to me. It would be weird to talk to the camera. Right?
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. I started writing essays, little essays, at the end of last year, posted them on my blog. The first one I wrote was called My Daughter and I Drove 3,200 Miles to Escape the Zombie Apocalypse, which is a story of how we left New York because the zombies were leaving the city, which was the people who didn't during the pandemic, and we had to drive for 10 days across America. So it's a story about America and Americans. So I wrote that one, and I just wrote just a handful of little essays. The most recent one that I've written, which I haven't posted yet, because I've made the video but I haven't edited it. Hoping my daughter's going to edit it for me. That essay is called "Does My Butt Look Big in This?" Yeah, and so actually the first day I went rollerblading, my friend took a picture of me in the rollerblades, and I've now lost 42 pounds this year, which is kind of crazy.
It's honestly, you just look amazing, amazing. Your legs are to die for.
I don't know how. I don't know. Just weird. Just
it's all that running up mountains, Kate. That's what it is.
Part of the reason I got inspired was, sorry, I always go on little distraction things. So at the end of last year, a new friend that I'd met, because I've made a handful of new friends in LA, and they're all fabulous in their own way, and I can't believe that they're my friends and that they actually want to be my friends. It's just very, very strange. A handful of new friends. So is it right to say this or not? Anyway, this is how he introduced himself when I met him. Friend of mine, someone I met a year or two ago. I said, "What do you do?" He says, "A porn star." Anyway, so a friend of mine is a porn star, and so I went hiking, and he loves hiking and stuff like that. So I've been hiking a few times with him and his other porn star friends and photographer friends and whatever, and they all have like these huge muscles, you know, they're like just whatever. I mean, it's their job, right? And I went hiking with them, and I was just the slow old lady at the back. I could hardly keep up. I was just at the back, you know. At least the view was good, looking up there. Right?
Not going to complain about that.
Not that I'm really into guys, but still, you know. Anyway, I was like, right, this is never going to happen again. I am determined. I am going to get fit, and I'm going to be the fastest on the mountain next time I go with them, which the last time I went, I pretty much was. You know,
really?
And the last time I went, yeah, I'm not going to say this, but I had to help people who were struggling, who last time were racing ahead of me. So yeah, so I had this determination. So I just like lost the weight, and every day I walk 6 miles. Several days a week I climb a mountain, which means to me 1,500 feet elevation gain. And I've started running on the mountain and stuff like that as well. And so it's crazy. So in 6 months I've totally changed. You know, I've totally changed, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when Greg took this photo of me in the rollerblades and I saw the photo, I was like, oh my God, who is that person? And what went through my head was like, damn girl, LA looks good on you. That was my thought. And it kind of just, because I only drove those 3,200 miles, which I think is the distance, with my daughter to come to LA, because my daughter, who's 21, loves LA and wanted to live in LA for a while. I'm not a fan. I mean, I love LA to visit. It's one of my favorite places. LA and New York, my two favorite places. Not a fan of the beach, sand in my bum, sand in my
Yeah,
sandwiches.
not fun. Yeah.
Hot, too hot all the time. Not a fan. Not a fan. But oh my God, I totally love it. Like living here has totally changed me. I look like a different person, act and feel like not a different person. I act and look and feel like I don't know, if I was a lettuce, it would be the fresh lettuce rather than the soggy lettuce 5 days later. So it's still me,
Yeah.
but it's just, it's the
You
better
just
version
packed
of
up.
me. Yeah. And
No,
so what
the
it made me
packed up
realize that
version.
if you want to think about where you should live, what job you should have, are the people who are your friends the right friends to have? Is the journey you take to work the right journey to work? These things that we look at and assess separately from ourselves, if they're right for us, is that the right career path? Instead of looking at how they look, like we might look at a dress on a hanger and go, do I like that dress? It's not until you put the dress on and look at yourself wearing the dress, and you don't even look at the dress, you look at how your butt looks in the dress, or you look at your face, how you're smiling, if you're glowing, right? When you wear that dress, you go, how do I look when I'm wearing that dress? And that's what being in LA made me realize. I can't assess whether I should live in LA, but I know that the person that I see living here looks glowing, right? So, if you're going to visit your friends down the pub or go for dinner, do you feel excited, or do you feel like, oh God, they're going to tell me that moaning story again, or I'm going to have to listen to that thing again, or they're going to ask me those awkward questions, or they always like make fun of my hair, or, do your friends look good on you? Does that career look good on you? Are you following that career because friends and family expect you to, but actually, you're much happier doing something that people don't think is good enough for you, but it's where you glow? The partner you have, do they make you feel amazing? Because it's never about them or those other things. It's never about that dress. It's about how you look in that dress. You know, and does your bum look big in it? I have to say butt because I wrote it for the American audience. And some people want their butt to look big in the dress, and some people want their butt to look small. Whatever your choice, right? So look at those things in your life, and just look at yourself, and
Yeah.
do you glow? Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
message of me.
It's a very good it's a very good message, and it's so since we spoke about this in one of our many meandering conversations, I honestly have thought about it. It's one of those ones that's kind of stuck in my head. About, just because you are talking about, you look at something objectively, and then when you're in that situation, or when you put on that dress, you take that role, you go out with that person. It is about the kind of the combination of the two, and whether that's right. It's
Yeah,
a very, I like that one a lot. But talking of looking at yourself, the thing that I love that you did recently, probably about 6 months ago, I think, you were doing some talks, and you decided to interview yourself, right?
I
And
did.
so I was just like, what the hell is she doing? And you were like, you had Kate you, and then
Yeah,
you had a video you, and
I'll try.
you were,
I don't. I tried to have it running today, but my room's moved around and everything. So, oh no, that's the wrong one. Let me think where it is.
if you
Let me
can do it, do it.
see.
But if you can't do it, don't worry. I just wanted to
No, I can't.
explore it. Don't worry.
Mm,
So
that's the interview, and I'm here somewhere. So I normally interview myself. I don't know if you can hear the audio, but that's how that works. Yeah,
I can.
I don't have it set up, but basically, yeah, I interviewed myself because so because I do a lot of keynotes and stuff, and then when I couldn't do that last year because of the pandemic, I started doing the Zoom calls, and they just bored me straight away. I mean, I've been on Zoom for a long while for work
Right.
anyway, but something's just not right. It's just not right doing a talk through Zoom, and
Yeah.
then people were
Yeah.
like, it's not the same as being there. So I thought about that a lot. And then I thought, well, actually, it's not that doing it through this medium is wrong. It's the way we're delivering things. we're taking what we used to do on a stage and putting it through a camera, and it doesn't work, you know. And I imagined that when they invented cinema and took a play and put it and filmed it, people would be like, ah, it doesn't work on a 2D screen, you know, you have to be in the audience. It's not the same as being there. And you know what I realized is it's not, it's format that's wrong. You have to change the format. You know, to be honest, when they put Hamilton on TV, not that I've seen Hamilton in the theatre, it's kind of, yeah, you know,
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree. Yeah, I completely agree.
yeah,
Whenever they put any theatre on
just
TV.
that
Yeah.
same format. And what I realized is television has glued eyeballs to screens and arseholes to couches for 80 years. And so, you know, they have a format that really works. People are glued to a screen when the format's different. So I looked at a few TV shows, like looking at CNN, looking at John Oliver and stuff like that, where they're kind of a person who either has someone comes in who they interview, or they have media pops up in a window. So I've created my system so I can drop any media I want, any videos I want into a thing, and then I can interview someone. But I had no one to interview, so I created Other Kate, and I interview Other Kate. So sometimes she's out in the wilderness or on a mountain, and then we have these conversations. But after a while, I started to realize that Other Kate is more real than I thought, you know, and I started to realize that I have an other inside myself, and we all have an other, and we have multiple others. I mean, you know, if you say, for example, you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, the alarm's gone off, oh, I'll snooze for 5 more minutes, but you really need to get out of bed because, you know, you've got this talk coming up and you need to prepare these things. It's like, yeah, I know, but half an hour won't matter more. Who is that conversation with if it's not with your other, right? Like we have these conversations with our other. And so, you know, I realized that Other Kate is the superhero. She's the one who rollerblades, does the TED Talks,
I
climbs
see.
mountains. Like
I
she does that stuff, you know, like when I do my 6 mile walk every day, right? So basically, I am too lazy. I'm happy on this couch. I don't want to do that walk, right? So Other Kate steps up. She walks 3 miles away from the house, and then she goes, my work here is done. And then she disappears. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake, what the hell have you done? And I've got no choice but to walk home because Other Kate's done that, you know, or Other Kate will hike up the mountain. Like when I hiked up the mountain, I hiked up for 3 days in Montana in winter, right, to like 9,000 feet, on my own through the snow. And I got to like the final places. It's like a lake, and there's the next bit of the mountain, and all the wood was wet, really hard to start a fire, starts to go dark, and then Other Kate did that, and then Other Kate disappears, and then I appear and was like, oh no, what the hell have you done now? And because I am terrified, because you know what? I was to a 2-day hike from the car, which was a long drive from the city. There are wolves, mountain lions, coyotes, and grizzly bears. Other Kate thought it was a great idea.
Why?
And then I slept in my hammock, um, and yeah, and then a foot of snow fell on me in the night, and I had to make my way to work. All the trail was covered. Anyway, so but also the point is that I can then be the lazy person who stays in bed. I can be the person who can't bother to do the walk, or sits on the couch, or doesn't get the work done, because I know that when needed, Other Kate will step up and do that. So I don't have to be hard on myself all day, every day. I just do the best I can in some of the moments of my day when I know I can, and then the rest of the day I can go back to being lazy Kate. It's absolutely fine. We don't have to be
Yeah.
hard on ourselves all day, every day. Do the best you can when you can, and then the rest of your time, just be lazy Kate or your lazy
Yeah.
other and kick
Just
back.
walk back home. Just walk back home from where
Yeah.
Other Kate has
But find
taken
your
you.
superhero inside. Find your superpower, and your like whatever makes you different, whatever makes you feel othered,
I was going to
whatever
say,
makes you
this is a
different.
really good point. This is a really good chance here just to talk about othered, that you
Yeah.
know how you call it othered. I think, yeah, let's talk about othering.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, maybe nearly everyone can feel othered in some way, right? You know, but for some of us, it manifests, you know, in more significant ways, than others. Um, yeah, you know, but then, but then, you know, there's kind of having to talk about the struggle and how difficult it is, and you know, and just to have that whole narrative of the negativity surrounding what makes you othered, um and and that can become a dominant narrative in you know, in your head. It can certainly has in the past in my head, right? You know, I'll never be able to live a life like anyone else because of the way that I'm different to people, because of the way that I might be ridiculed, or how my voice sounds, or how I look.
Sorry, can I just point out your voice doesn't sound bad because of anything other than the fact that you were out partying all weekend. I know this. You can try and get away with that, but you're not going to.
I'm still recovering. I went out Saturday
I
night.
know.
My first time out since the pandemic. I
I
went
know.
out to
All
Wales
right,
party
sorry,
night, Saturday night,
carry
and
on with
Sunday night.
you're very serious. It is very
Yeah,
serious.
my voice is still
But
struggling.
I just wasn't going to
Um,
let you get away with that one.
no, fair enough. But you know, but it starts then, and then the way people talk about you, it's like, oh, you know, she's doing really well for a woman in technology. You know, wow, she's doing really well running a business as a trans person. You know, she's doing really well for, you know, filling whatever's different about your skin color or your ethnicity. It's like, fuck that. Like, fuck, like any of that. You know, like, you know, if we're mediocre at what we do, like I am at rollerblading, then I'm mediocre at it, right? But if I'm inventing some tech and, you know, working with some huge brands and doing some stuff, and I'm the only person in the world that can do it, then I'm fucking awesome at it. And I'm not awesome at it for a woman. I'm not awesome at it for a trans person. Like, fuck that. I don't want that label. I don't want that label. And I don't want to be treated as equal. Like, if I'm exceptional, I don't want to be treated as equal. I want to be treated as exceptional, you know, and that's what we need to talk about, you know, and we need anyone that's different, othered in any way, you know, and you see them come and give a talk. Let's not have them talk about what makes them different. Let's have them talk about what makes them fucking awesome, and have those narratives, right? You know, so when the person, you know, comes on in the wheelchair in the TED talk, let's hear them talk about how they discovered a fucking galaxy, or something, or, you know, broke the world record at Tiddlywinks or something. I don't know what, you know. I don't want to see the person who comes on and has a, you know, a skin color that's different than the non-othered, and talks about that struggle. I want to hear those stories too, but I also want to hear people who might seem different talk about how fucking awesome they are, because that is a way to enable all of us to be equal where we're mediocre, and exceptional where we're exceptional. So that's what I believe on
Genius. Genius.
that.
God, I love speaking to you so much, as you know. And I think that, well, look at that, poor timing. We are able now, on that fantastic note, to go over to Rob for a Q&A. Welcome, Rob.
Hi everyone, I'm Rob Knight. I'm the leader of SUSE's Pride at SUSE Employee Network. And thank you, Emma, and thank you, Kate, so much for that. I really enjoyed hearing your stories, and from the feedback that came in through via the questions and chat, it seems so did everyone else as well. Really, really fantastic to hear. So I'll jump right in with the first question that came through from our listeners. And they've said that it's been more than 3 years since they got diagnosed with PTSD and borderline personality disorder. And recently, when applying for jobs, they have to fill in the box that says, I've got a disability. So their question is, will that hamper their career once their company knows about their illness? And are we aware of that for a woman in the tech field, it can be really hard to, you know, survive sometimes on that technology path, and that person doesn't want management to see their disability as a hindrance. So yeah, are there any tips there or any advice you can give, Kate?
Yeah, sure. So I think, so there's often two components, right? There's the way that people treat us inappropriately, and there's the way that we perceive that we're being treated inappropriately as well, which can be two different things, because, you know, there's many a time where I think people are staring at me and thinking very negative thoughts. And there's been many a time when I've reacted to that in a way where I'm then quite embarrassed to realize that they were thinking the opposite to what I thought. And the reason I say there's two components, because that doesn't mean that I do not want to imply that it's all in you know, things are all in, you know, in my head, and no one is being inappropriate and holding me back. But I do believe that there are two components, right? So there's not a lot we can necessarily do about how people treat us, but there's a whole hell of a lot about how we perceive, how we can change how we perceive how people treat us. And, you know, so what I try to do is, when I walk down the street, and I know this is it is different, so I don't have the same experience as the person who's asking the question, so, and I can't pretend that I have. So I can just talk about a couple of experiences that I've had. Walking down the street, people are staring at me. I get a narrative in my head as to what they're thinking. You know, I decided a bunch of years ago to change the narrative and go, they're thinking, oh my God, she is really beautiful. Or they're thinking, oh my God, is she out of that film? I'm not sure which one it is. Or they're thinking, wow, she's really brave. I wish I was as brave as her. So I started to try and get that narrative in my head to replace the other narrative, because I realized that my fear of how I thought people were thinking about me, my fear of how I was being held back in a meeting, on a stage, or wherever I went, because of how I'm different, my fear of that was creating a body language and a messaging that was making that become a thing that was at the forefront of other people's minds, so that then they started to use their inappropriate way of acting on that thing that had been brought up in conversation, even though it was only through body language. So what I try to do is, whenever anyone meets me, I have to hit them with my personality first. So I have to let my personality come through. So the fact that I'm trans might look different, might sound different, whatever, that has to be totally overshadowed with who I am and what I'm doing. I have to have no space in my mind to think about what makes me different when I'm encountering other people at all. I most days forget that I'm trans. It's not part of my daily narrative. It's not in my top 10. And if it's not in my top 10, it's less likely to be in someone else's mind when they're encountering with you. They may reflect on it later. And that doesn't mean that it's in your mind. It doesn't mean that people are inappropriate, but it does mean, by pushing what makes you awesome first and foremost front and center when you encounter other people, you can make them a little less likely to use their bigoted behavior to hold you back. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic answer to that question. And I guess actually slightly related to that, we had another question come in from the audience, from Kristen, which do you have any tips or advice that you can give on how you get the negative out, how you get that negativity out when it does crop up?
Hey, and I you know, like, I get the negativity every day, you know, and like 2 months back, I was so negative, I could hardly, you know, so it's really hard, really hard. I think one thing is being fortunate to have a handful of friends around you who will stick with you even when you become the most negative, depressed person, who only wants to talk about the struggle, who shares the dark thoughts that you have. You know, being fortunate to have friends around. I've been fortunate to have a couple of friends around me who've stuck with me through, you know, some of the darkest moments, which for me was a few months ago, which coincidentally nearly everyone I spoke to was in deep depression a few months ago during the pandemic. So I quickly realized I wasn't alone, you know. so at the time for me, how I got out of that hole when it was really, really bad was in conversation with my friends, trying to focus on doing other things. I actually immersed myself in Clubhouse at that time. And so that became a set of headphones when I was walking that overrode the second narrative that was running in my head of that negative voice saying all of those things to me. The challenge is there's an other in your head that keeps telling you the same story, the same story, the same story, the same negative story. And without external regulation, which can be something that you do, it could be people that you interact with, without that, that becomes your reality. Now, that negative person inside you that tells you all of those negative thoughts, they are a fucking coward. And they will not usually dare take the worst thoughts and put them out through your mouth. And so you actually a lot of time can't actually vocalize some of them. And so if you end up within conversation with other people and getting immersed in other things, it makes you vocalize things. It makes you connect with a different set of reality. And it starts to let you see that a lot of that stuff that you're being told is bullshit. I don't know if that helps, but that's a little bit how I've got myself out of a hole sometimes. It's an alternative reality that's manifesting in your head, which we all have, because that is how our brains work, right? Our brain is a reality machine. The job of our brain is to take whatever data it has and conjure a believable enough reality. That's the way our brains work. That's what I learned when I was in a coma. And so as much as possible, external regulation, people, conversation, other things, so I just got obsessed with other things. I don't know if that helps.
No, it definitely does, definitely resonates with me. So I'm sure it does with the person who asked the question as well. Now, next question. Now, any one of us who's Googled you knows that you've had a lot of achievements in your life, but is there one particularly that you're proud of the most, or one you found the most exciting or rewarding to work on?
In my work?
Yeah, I believe so, in your work, yeah.
So I always find that a really difficult question to answer. I could show you something I've made, which is totally random. Just so happen to have things. I'll quickly show you a poster, which is a bit old. An intergalactic alien music remixing rap battle, and when you touch different parts, anyway, right. So just for anyone, that's what sort of stuff that I do, make these things. DJ Qberts, DJ decks, paper DJ decks, whatever. Anyway.
Paper DJ decks are the future.
I tell my kids that on paper, I'm the best DJ in the world. So made a lot of things, but however, my favorite thing is not the thing that I make. It's the smile that someone gets on their face when they interact with the thing that I make. Because I don't want to develop technology that has an ego. I don't want to develop technology that's kind of saying, oh, this is a really, really cool device, and the shape and form and function is so cool because, I'm so awesome at developing this. I want to create things that look everyday, ordinary, and magical, and that when someone experiences them, they feel amazing and they get a big smile on their face. So if I could make a video of all the favorite things that I've made, in that video, you would not see anything that I'd made. All you would see is the faces of the people who experienced them, and then seeing them grabbing someone's sleeve and pulling them over. It's like, hey, try this, because it's not the things that I make, it's the reactions that people have, that other human beings have, that the joy it brings to people. That's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, and I can hear that when you're talking about it. Just the way you get infused by it comes across very clearly. Now, I think the next question, actually, there's opportunity for either of you actually to contribute here. The question is, how can I be a good mentor? And what have you found works for you, those you mentor, or with other people that have mentored yourselves? Any tips? Start with Kate.
I haven't done a lot of mentoring. I haven't done a lot, so do you know, I'm just going to just give a really simple answer. I imagine that probably one of the best things to do is just to listen a lot. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I mean, I think so. Sometimes I've been asked to mentor people because they want to emulate some success that I've had, or they see something, you know, maybe they'll see my confidence and believe that I am actually confident rather than crippled by anxiety. I'm not that bad. So I think, you know, the first thing when you start mentoring someone is to really get to the bottom of who they are, and it's really important to find their strengths, what makes them awesome. So what Kate was talking about at the end, you know, what is it that they should be up on stage talking about, and draw that out, but in a kind of you know, growth mindset coaching kind of way. So you're not just telling people what to do or kind of giving advice, it's drawing them out. So the, you know, active listening, which I think is what you're talking about, Kate, is just really important, you know, just really being aware of what they're saying. And then all you do is just keep asking questions. I remember I had a mentor, and so right back at the beginning when I was kind of really terrified about everything that I was doing, and I used to get myself into an awful pickle all the time, and we would unpick questions because she would just go, yes, but why? Yes, but why? Yes, but why? And every time I would give an answer and she would say, yes, but why? And that, you know, so you're taking yourself down your own journey. So I think that's a good tip.
Yeah, very good tips, all of them. I like this next question actually. Yeah, so to Kate, do you have any favorite books, movies, podcasts, or other media that inspire you or motivate you that you think everyone here should read or listen to?
One book and one movie. So I only read one book. I'm terrible. I only read one book, and I just read it again and again and again. Is the Tao Te Ching. So I just love reading the Tao, and it brings so much meaning to my life. It's strange because it's something that I read that I don't understand. In the same way that when I eat food, I don't know how it's good for me. It just is. When I read the Tao, when I consume the Tao, it's only sometimes weeks, months, years later that I start to realize how it's affected me. And it brings me so much meaning to read the Tao. It's allowed me to tie together thoughts and feelings that I've had in a way that helps me understand the meaning, which is great. My favorite film, which I actually watched out in the desert. So I went on a desert trip last week with a friend of mine, Gina. We both pretended we were secret agents and we drove out into the desert, which was a little weird, with our plastic guns that we bought from Walmart. We watched. So we slept under the Milky Way. So I have an amazing photo on my Instagram of the Milky Way and everything. And we slept literally just out in the Mojave Desert. And I had a little projector and set a screen up. And on the first night, the film that we watched, which was our training film for us being secret agents on the law, Legally Blonde is my all-time favorite #1 film. The person that's different, that doesn't fit in, that everyone thinks shouldn't be there, that everybody underestimates, but through their difference, they see things that other people cannot see, and that still no one will listen to their reasoning. And then eventually, everyone is shocked when, because of what makes them different, and because of the way she sees something that no one else can see, the whole case is solved and everyone knows why that person's there and they should have been there all along and they're the fucking superhero. So yeah, seeing the other come through, love it.
And I really think that is almost the perfect final question and answer to give, because that just ties in with the theme of everything that you've spoken about today. So I'll hand back to Emma now to close us out. But from myself, from everyone at Pride at SUSE and everyone watching, thank you so much, Dr. Kate Stone, for giving us your time today. Over to you, Emma.
It's been so much fun.
Fine. Okay. I mean, there's not much more to say, but I definitely would advise everybody go and dig out Kate on Instagram, because you'll be able to follow her adventures. And I know you said the other day that you were kind of slightly uncomfortable with how much you were kind of, you know, pushing on social media, but it is honestly so inspiring at the moment. Whilst we're all kind of still in lockdown, whilst you're just kind of picking these things that you are feeling brave enough to kind of go and do, and just having so much fun, that if anybody wants a joyful moment in the day, just go and follow Kate on Instagram. That is my advice, honestly. And so thank you, as ever, thank you very much, and hugely appreciate you as a person and as a friend. And I know that this audience here has also really enjoyed speaking to you. So thank you, and I will catch up with you soon. I'll come out there, come see you.
Yes, come and visit. We'll go rollerblading, definitely. And we'll climb a mountain, definitely.
Yes, definitely want to do that. Rollerblading, I'll just fall over the whole time, but that's fine. All right.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.